I know what it feels like to watch another wedding ring reveal video pop up on your feed and think, when is it my turn? Is there something wrong with me? I know what it feels like to pray the same prayer for the 5th year in a row and wonder if God even remembers that you asked. There's a Bible verse where Paul says, none of these things move me. Not the danger he was walking into or the uncertainty. Nothing moved him off of what he knew God called him to do. So today, I'm not going through 7 red flags in dating or 5 tips to attracting your husband, but I want to talk to you about becoming immovable, like the kind of faith that doesn't shift no matter what your circumstances are currently telling you. And the thing about waiting on the person that God has for you is that it's not usually just a season you survive once and just move past, right? It is a daily decision to keep believing when all of the evidence around you says to give up. And most of us don't quit believing in God for a spouse in just an instant. We don't stand up one day and say, I'm done believing for marriage. We just quietly stop expecting. We stop getting ready. We let the bitterness and resentment in and start doubting that it will ever happen. And we call it being realistic, right? You see, that's the real danger of this waiting season. Not that you'll walk away from your faith, but that you will lose your hope and just begin going through the motions. Acts 20:24 is where Paul is talking about everything that's working against him. He's got chains. He's afflicted. People telling him not to go where he is headed. And he says none of it moves him. He wasn't unaware of the danger. He was very aware of it. He just refused to let it change what he believed. And that's a posture I want for you in this season, okay? Refuse to be moved off of what you believe God has for you. So today, I want to give you 4 things to be immovable in while you wait. Now, this is not to manipulate God into sending your husband faster, okay? But it's so that you actually stay planted and enjoy your life while you're waiting for it to look a little different, okay? The first one is be immovable on the promise. So first, you have to be immovable on what God has already said, not on what your circumstances are currently telling you, because those are 2 different things, right? And if you get them confused, you will talk yourself out of hoping every single time. Habakkuk 2:3 says, the vision is for an appointed time. It's going to come. It's not going to lie. Though it lingers, wait for it. That word lingers is in the Bible. God knew there'd be a gap between the promise and the proof, and he still told us to wait for it and not to doubt because of it. Waiting doesn't mean that God forgot. It just means that the answer is still in transit, right? You keep waiting for the proof before you'll believe it, but that's actually backwards. Immovable means you believe it before it ever even shows up. And I think a lot of us treat the wait like a countdown clock that God has set and maybe forgot to check on. But what if that wait is actually doing something? What if it's not God finding your person faster? What if it's something about you becoming the woman who's actually ready to receive what you're asking for? I heard this quote once in a dating message that says, become the person you're looking for is looking for. I was like, wait, what? In other words, you work on becoming the type of person that your person is going to be attracted to. Now, I'm not saying you have to earn it or that you won't find your person until you're completely healed and fully ready, because that's not how grace works, right? But there is something to be said about preparing for what you're praying for. God rarely just hands you the thing, right? More often, he's building something in you while you wait for it. So before you go any further today, I want you to be honest about what you actually believe God said, not what your mom said, not what your married friend said, not what any algorithm keeps showing you, but what has God spoken to you directly? Write it down. Because when the waiting gets hard, you need to see something in writing to go back to and stand on. And here's why this matters so much. One, because the Bible says to write the vision and make it plain in Habakkuk 2:2, but also it is so easy to let the length of the wait convince you that the promise has already expired. But a delay is not a cancellation, okay? The promise doesn't have an expiration date just because it's taking longer than you planned, okay? It comes with a not yet, and a not yet is not a no, right? Okay. Number two, become immovable in your actual life. And that'll make sense in a minute, okay? Be immovable in the life you already have, not the one you're waiting for. This is where I see a lot of women get stuck. You put your real life on pause. You don't buy the nice furniture because what if he doesn't like it? Or you don't take the trip because I want to experience that with my husband. You stop investing in the friendships around you because it starts to feel like, well, this isn't the relationship I wanted. Or because you wonder if the man God has for you is maybe in a different state. And if you make friends where you're at, then you'll just end up leaving them. So why bother? Right? Have you ever thought that? I mean, can I be honest with you? That's not faith. Real faith says, I believe that God is working on my future and I'm still going to build a beautiful life today. You are not in a waiting room. You are not on hold. This is your actual life right now, today, and it deserves your full attention. Okay, this is kind of a weird analogy, but hear me out. Some of you have made your singleness a museum instead of a home, right? You're just walking through it, dusting things off, waiting to move somewhere else. But God wants you to live there, furnish it, fill it with people and purpose and joy, because the woman who builds a full life on her own is the woman who's going to build a healthy marriage later. You're not wasting your time by living now. You're practicing. So this week, do one thing that says, I believe I have a good life today. Not just, I believe I'll have a good life someday. Book the trip, redecorate the apartment, say yes to the girls' night. Stop treating your current season like a hallway you're just rushing through to get to whatever that real room is, okay? The version of you that God is building right now, the one with her own routines, her own friendships, her own sense of who she is outside of a relationship, that's not a placeholder version of you that gets replaced once you're married. That's the woman your future husband is going to fall in love with. If you disappear into the waiting, you'll have less of yourself to bring into the marriage when it comes. Staying present in your own life isn't a distraction from the promise, okay? It's part of how you stay immovable in the promise, okay? Number three is immovable in your words. I want you to pay attention to what you're saying out loud during this season, because your words are training your heart on what to expect. Proverbs 18:21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. That's not a magic formula where saying the right sentence magically produces a beautiful husband, right? But it is true that the words you repeat shape the story you believe about yourself. If every conversation with your friends turns into, I'm never going to get married, or all the good ones are taken, you're not just venting, you're rehearsing a belief until it feels like a fact. Now, I'm not asking you to fake being fine. Pretending everything's okay when you're actually hurting isn't faith. It's just a performance, and that is exhausting, right? There's a difference between being honest about your pain and building your identity around lack. You can say, this is hard, and I trust God is still working in the same sentence. Both things can be true. So try this. Next time someone asks how the dating life is going, instead of leading with discouragement, try leading with what you're believing for. You know, something like, it's been a long season, but I still believe God has someone for me and I'm not giving up. Say it even when it feels like a stretch, right? Especially when it feels like a stretch, because you're not just describing your life when you talk, you are shaping it. Okay, fourth, immovable in gratitude. And this one can sometimes be the hardest, to stay immovable in gratitude in the middle of what you don't have yet. It is so easy to let this season become defined by absence. No husband, no proposal, no +1. You see, when your whole focus narrows down into what's missing, you stop even noticing what's actually present. Gratitude isn't pretending that the ache isn't real. It's refusing to let that ache be the only thing you see. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says, give thanks in every circumstance, not for every circumstance, okay? God is not asking you to be thankful that you're single if that's genuinely painful for you. He's asking you to keep your eyes open enough to notice the good that is still happening around the pain, the friendships that show up for you, the freedom you have right now to move, to build, to say yes to things a season from now you might not be able to say yes as easily to, right? Now, I want to tell you something I've noticed. The women who eventually walk into healthy marriages so often are not sitting around waiting with their arms crossed. No, they're building the life they want. They're grateful for what they have. They're present in their actual lives, not because gratitude is a magic trick to summons a husband, right? But because bitterness causes you to close off and gratitude keeps your heart open. And an open heart is what lets you actually receive love when it does finally show up. So be immovable on what God has actually said, not on what your circumstances and situations are shouting at you. Be present in the life you already have instead of putting it on pause. Be cautious about your words because you're either building hope or building discouragement with every word that you speak. And be immovable in gratitude because a soft, thankful heart is a heart that is ready to receive. And if it feels like the season is taking longer than you thought, I'm not going to tell you why because I don't know why. But I do know this. Over and over again in the Bible, and even in present day, we see that those who waited the longest saw the best reward for their patience. Paul said none of these things moved him, not the chains, not the warnings, not the uncertainty. And the woman who stays immovable through the waiting is a woman who is going to be rewarded greatly when the answer finally walks through the door. So stay immovable in hope. Keep believing. And remember, you are worthy, loved, and chosen. Have a blessed week.